did the start and get recording going here. So Rick, we can, okay. You should be able to turn off his mute. Right. Jeff Perry, we want to mute. We definitely don't want to hear from him.
Poor Jeff.
And Rick, you should be able to unmute yourself. There we go. I just saw there you go. Hey, Rick.
You hear from me.
How you doing?
Good. There you go. Perfect.
There's
Okay,
Alexis.
now Alexis is in now too. Okay. So everybody should be in here. Okay.
I think everybody is on.
Okay. Yep.
Was
I
on
think
our
everybody's
last one
here.
too.
So we will do, what we'll do is we'll do the quick little one-hitters, Alexis and Mike, and then we'll let Chuck take over and do the introductions and let the team take it from there. So, oh yeah, we are recording anyway. Once you start the meeting, it records. So good morning, everyone. Welcome to the California Federal webinar. Before we even get rolling, the next webinar is going to be set for March 10th, Monday, March 10th, exactly 1 month from today. We'd like to thank everyone again. If you weren't on the federal webinar, thank you again for coming out to SHOT. If we saw you at SHOT, if you came out for pizza, if you came to the booth, if you did whatever you did, but you came and saw us, it was a productive SHOT for us. We had a lot of meetings. We saw a lot of people, and I myself am getting ready to leave for Phoenix tomorrow morning. I'll be at the Sports Inc. show in Phoenix. Jameson from Fastbound and I will be in booth 209er at the Sports Inc. show on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We're going to keep things quick from the East Coast / Central team here so that we can get the floor turned over to Mike. If you missed our federal webinar, we will have it posted by the week. We asked you to go back and take a look there for any additional information that we may miss on this one. But real quick, I just want to send it over to Mike Franzak. Mike, you want to give a couple things, and then Alexis can piggyback off of you, and then we'll turn it over to Chuck, and we'll have Avis give the parting shots when we leave here.
Yep. Good morning, everybody. Good morning in California. Good afternoon here on the East Coast. Just a couple things real quick, because we talked about this just an hour ago, and I think most of you were on that call. We just want to talk about the fact that during the SHOT Show, not a lot of information provided by ATF. They're evaluating their adverse action policy, they said. And that has come extremely to the forefront now, because on Friday, the executive order by President Trump was issued, and they're looking at all that information, their adverse action policy, any actions taken by people during the last 4 years. And so they're going to have to really go forward with a new program, new policy going forward. But the Attorney General probably is going to review this before it gets leashed upon all the FFLs out there in the United States, and especially California. So that's one thing that's come about. Alexis had put that out in our blast last Friday. They got that whole document on there. Thank you, Alexis. Very timely, right to the point. As soon as it came out, she was on it. Put it right in there right away. So that was good. And so that's one thing I just wanted to bring up for everybody. I know there's a lot of information that California is coming, has to relay to you guys, but so I just wanted to bring that out. That adverse action policy is out there still, but make sure that you're cognizant of any closing conference, or you attend a warning conference of your answers that are provided to the ATF IOI or supervisor who's in the room. That information can be used against you later if they choose to at a hearing. So I just want to make you aware of that, and let us know when you're going to have a closing conference, if we need to attend based on the violations you think you may have, or definitely a closing conference if you have several violations that we need to attend with you. With that, that's it, Brian.
All right. Alexis, you want to add anything there?
Just wanted to let everybody know we have scheduled our next webinar. So I will drop the link in the chat for anyone who would like to attend. And we'll be talking about technology for FFLs, what you got to know, what it does do, what it doesn't do. And so we hope we'll see you there. That's it for me.
All right. Mr. Chuck, where'd you go? He disappeared. Is he just having camera? There he is. Would you like to take the reins and introduce your team over there and let us know what we're in for today?
Sure. You guys know Matt. Matt is sort of the DOJ regulatory specialist and the co-author of the California gun laws book with me. He's sort of the nitty-gritty guy on application of state law and regulations, and also pending regulations. I'll let him talk about those in a minute. Rick Travis is the legislative advocate for the CRPA, California Rifle and Pistol Association. Rick is a full-time lobbyist in Sacramento and has been doing a lot of good things, getting a lot of things done. I figured it was good to have him on the call to update you guys on what's being done there. And I hope after you hear what he has to say, any California FFL will think about becoming a business affiliate with CRPA, so you can help us get some members for CRPA so that CRPA can continue to be able to fund lawsuits and lobbying and all the other good things we do, including 50 or so local chapters. There's probably one in your area. And shooting programs. There is a kind of what we're all about at the base level. So on lawsuits, first of all, on the executive order, let me say CRPA is putting together a submission there to make the United States Department of Justice, the United States Attorney General, aware of some of the shenanigans that the Ninth Circuit has been playing in California. We did an article about this in the last issue of the CRPA magazine, which I hope you're all getting. It also lists all the lawsuits that are going on, not just in California, but across the country. The hot stuff in lawsuits right now is CCW and trying to make cities and counties that issue them streamline the process, not make it too expensive. One of the big wins that we got in our lawsuit against LA County Sheriff was that California issuing agencies are now required to accept out-of-state applications. That's still shaking out through the process. We're getting word that some sheriffs are very positive about that and actually may sort of set it up so that they try and attract out-of-state residents to come get CCWs from them, particularly Riverside, we're hearing. Others may do that as well. There's a misconception out there, and there's some guy who's trolling CRPA because he says we like the licensing system. No, we would rather have concealed carry, constitutional carry everywhere, but the Supreme Court kind of said a licensing system is okay, but you can't abuse it. Well, lots of jurisdictions are abusing it. So this is going to be a game of whack-a-mole for a while as we chase jurisdictions that are taking too long and charging too much. One of the things that may come out of this, and this, particularly this out-of-state residence a requirement now, is some legislative changes in Sacramento, and I'll let Rick talk about that. But we're hoping we can get the CCW term up from 2 years to 5 years, and maybe get the costs down to be more in line with other states where it's $100 for 5 years, and in some places in California it's $1,000 for 2 years. So that's something a lot of people can't afford. And this isn't supposed to be, CCWs for rich people only. It's supposed to be for everybody. So we're working hard on that. We'll be suing Santa Clara next because of their excessive fees. That lawsuit will be filed pretty quickly. We've got an excise tax challenge case going on. To be honest with you, I forget exactly where that is in the process. I know we filed a complaint. We had to wait a while before we could sue, because to challenge a tax requirement, you have to actually pay the tax before you can challenge the tax. It's an odd thing about challenging a tax law. And the defendant is not the Department of Justice, it's the California Tax Bureau. So that lawsuit has been filed and amended. The complaint has been amended now that the taxes have been paid by some of the FFLs that are standing in as plaintiffs in that case. So we will be seeking injunctive relief. I just don't know how close we are to doing that right now off the top of my head. One interesting development lately, and this is sort of a mixed bag. The Fifth Circuit, which is supposed to be, typically it's a friendly circuit, they got a bad panel, and in a suppressor case, the court said that suppressors are not arms. Remember, the Second Amendment only protects the right to keep and bear arms. So if the states can argue that a magazine is not an arm, it's a part, or a suppressor is not an arm, it's a part, or a bump stock is not an arm, or a pistol brace is not an arm, then all of those accessories are not protected by the Second Amendment. Of course, that argument is ridiculous. Ammunition is an arm. You know, all the things that you need to make a gun work are supposed to be, and how to use it. You know, go to the range. That's all stuff that's protected under the right to keep and bear arms. There are ancillary rights, not the specific firearm and a right to bear a specific firearm, but they are nonetheless protected by the Second Amendment. So that's an issue that has to be resolved. And we have a plaintiff in California who filed his own lawsuit. And this is always, you know, something that we have to deal with, unfortunately. People think that they watch Mark Smith or some other pundits online and think that they understand the issue enough to file their own lawsuit. Then they get on there with AI and they write a brief. And so he files his own lawsuit and naturally loses in the district court. He appeals it. And interestingly enough, the Court of Appeals, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, actually asked for a lawyer to step up and represent him. So my law firm and CRPA and Cooper and Kirk, and I think probably Second Amendment Foundation, are all going to associate in on that lawsuit, on that appeal, I should say, and file, you know, competent briefs that argue that a suppressor is an arm, so it is protected, and then the burden should shift over to the state to show that there is some historical analog, some law from the late 1700s that shows that the founding fathers would have tolerated a suppressor law. Now, interestingly enough, again, Doctors for Responsible Gun Ownership and some of the emergency room doctor groups have come out in favor of suppressors as a hearing aid, as a hearing protection device. And so we'll be working with them to get that into the record as well. But to be honest with you, I mean, we've been working with the Suppressor Association and they didn't want to file in California yet. And I don't blame them. It's not a good place to start. Fifth Circuit, we thought Fifth Circuit would be a good place to start, but got a bad result there. So we'll probably be seeking en banc review there by a larger panel of appellate court judges. Ultimately, I expect suppressors are going to wind up in front of the Supreme Court. We're still waiting to hear about the Maryland assault weapon case. Used to be Bianchi, now Snopes. It's in front of the Supreme Court. We're hoping the Supreme Court will take it. It did turn down a couple of cases that were on the preliminary injunction stage. So, and they haven't taken it as of yet, which means even if they do take it, it won't be heard until the court starts again in October 2025. So, but that's a case that really needs the whole semi-automatic ban, which we're dealing with in, I think, 6 states. Illinois and California are probably, and Maryland are probably the furthest out in front on those lawsuits challenging those. But it has to be resolved. The Supreme Court's got to step in. It's got to make clear that what common use means, that semi-autos are in common use, so you can't ban them. What cases am I forgetting, Matt?
Just the May v. Bonta decision.
Oh yeah. So that's a challenge to the California overdesignation of sensitive places. We have sort of a guide for folks on the CRPA website about where you can and cannot possess concealed if you have a CCW. Remember, for 100 years, all these places where they're trying to claim they're sensitive, you've been allowed to carry there with a CCW. It's never been a problem. If you didn't have a CCW, you might have had to carry it a certain way or may not be able to carry it at all. But with the CCW, for 100 years, you have been. But now, of course, they don't want the CCW. Newsom's cronies do not want the CCW to have, they want to make it as useless as possible and as expensive as possible to get. So they're just trying to red tape it and limit its value to discourage people from applying. So that, where is May v. Bonta procedurally, Matt? Do you remember?
We had the decision that the mandate issued, and so now it goes up on appeal. But there's the case that's out of Hawaii, Wolford, if I recall correctly, that's been petitioned that we filed the amicus in. In the chat, there's the guide that Chuck's mentioned, helping people better understand the effects of this ruling. So if you haven't seen that, check that out and send that to your customers.
Yeah, and this is another thing that customers can get if we can get them to join CRPA. We really need to have more California gun owners as members of CRPA for all the different things the CRPA does. The sexy thing is the lawsuits and Rick's job in stopping bad crap in Sacramento. But juniors programs, women's program, gun safety, the training programs, they all go hand in hand with what CRPA does. There's several groups out there that all they really do is litigate. They don't actually get people pulling triggers. They just raise money to fund lawsuits. We do everything. So we could use all the members we can get. I don't know if there's any, I think that's about all. I'm just checking the list of litigation that I have here to see if there's anything else you guys need to know about. Obviously, the new book is out. If anybody wants to get a wholesale order for those, contact CRPA, or just to buy a regular copy. It's on calgunlawsbook.com. You can get an ebook now. We have that available, which makes it easier to search. The gun show ban case we've asked the Supreme Court to hear it. Strangely enough, they said you can have a gun show, but you can offer guns for sale, but you can't accept, someone can't actually accept your offer and buy it at the gun show. You have to do that off premises. So we're fighting that. The roster, we've got a few more guns added to the roster lately, and that case is also, I believe that's one of the cases that's held up behind Duncan, which is the 10+ round magazine case that's been sitting in the en banc court for, I think it's been a year now. And there's a couple other cases, the Rhodey ammunition sales restrictions case, that are bottled up behind Duncan. So is the CRPA's assault weapon challenge, the Rupp v. Becerra. And that's about all I have right now. But again, the CRPA magazine has a update on litigation in every issue, and you can get more information about pending lawsuits at the CRPA website. So if you guys got questions, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, we'll turn this over to Rick.
Okay. Good to see all of you. Brian, long time. So we've changed some things in the Capitol. As you know, in California, it has largely been a defensive action for the last 25 years inside the Capitol. And taking over this position a couple of years ago and having worked in support of it for the past decade, we have made a change to start fighting back. And then we were very blessed with the outcome at the national election because that's empowered more people to do so. So I'm happy to say that we have a total of 7 bills that we're running that are offensive, 3 of them that directly affect this particular group. The other 4, just to mention, are going back after hunting rights and bringing science back into the Capitol, where people can't use emotional responses but would be forced to go after and listen to science. We know some of those bills are going to take a little longer than others, but the 3 that are important to you is we have a bill that is being supported by a new Assembly member, Heather Hadwick, who is out of Northern California, and it will be dealing with security door issues at FFLs. There has been some game playing throughout the past with the California Department of Justice because they're looking for a door that comes out of the penal code. The fire code requests a different door, so often FFLs have gotten caught in between those. And so we're gaining quite a lot of support for this bill that will actually have its number later this week, and we'll be out onto the floor and headed towards hearings. But we've got a lot of support from both Republicans and some of the moderate Democrats that this is probably long overdue. So I'm very hopeful that that one will make it to the governor's desk. Now, what he'll do, we're not sure, but I think with a lot of the pressure, he'll be hard placed not to sign this in, and this will prevent some of the fines and harassment. Next on the list, we have a CCW bill that's out of Leticia Castillo, Assemblywoman in Southern California, and it will move our 2-year licensing renewal CCW to a 4-year. So that's part of what Chuck was talking of, pushing that back. And then the last one is a bill that is coming out. That is from Senator Chu, and that will be on hunting, and it has to do with CCWs. We have been fighting for almost 6 years to get CCWs to be allowed to be carried while hunting, which I know sounds crazy if you're not in California, but that has been an issue. We did a lot of it during the regulatory process in the Fish and Game Commission, where I was working on that stuff. But the final barrier was deer. We got the department to back us on this. And so that looks like that too will go through, and that will be carried by the Outdoor Sporting Caucus, which we worked very hard to reshape and reform about a year ago. So now we have much more pro Second Amendment and pro hunting members of an Outdoor Sporting Caucus who to thunk it. But we're actually getting that done in California and have about 28 members of the Assembly and Senate in it. So that's a major change out of the 120. So that is growing, and there's a lot of people taking notice in that. Some of the other things that we're working on, there is one bill that is trying to increase fees from DOJ when they do FFL inspections. We're fighting that. And that is Senate Bill 15 from Catherine Blakespear. Also in that is she's trying to isolate the top 10 FFLs in the state whose firearms end up in the hands of criminals and being used in criminal acts to really try to penalize the FFL. So we will be working hard on that one. Matt and I are having meetings this week as we get ready to oppose that and go to the floor. And so that's what's going on in the legislature.
Did you want to talk about the doorbell at all, Rick?
Well, that was the security door bill that I said.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And by the way, if you have ideas that you would like to see as FFLs, please bring them to our desk because we are going to continually to aggressively fight. We've got people that are willing to fight. And there are some big changes in California. We have a lot of districts that used to be what we call D16 districts, which was like almost a lost cause to even fight it. Chuck's old neck of the woods, Palos Verdes, was almost all D16 precincts. They're now D1s and D2s. So we moved the bar 14 points over. That was prior to the fires. A recent poll that was done by the New York Times throughout LA County showed a lot of those now going +2, +3 GOP because of Karen Bass's wonderful leadership in Los Angeles, along with our governors. So that has helped a great deal. And so a lot of these things are flippable, and that's where we need FFLs also in helping us get out the vote, because a lot of people love to do what I call mean up at the tailgate and griping and making each other depressed and not voting. We got to stop that. We got to get people out there fighting because 3 districts that we were told could not be flipped, they were D9s to D12s. We flipped all 3 of them, one of them by 600 votes. So we can do this. And those people are coming through. They're carrying bills for us. So it's time to take back the Golden State.
All right. If anyone, Matt, you have anything that you'd like to add on to?
Yeah, I'll talk about a few things. So
You jump in
both
there?
Chuck and Rick kind of touched on a lot of the stuff that I just wanted to make sure everybody was aware of. But we have 2 sets of regulations that are currently being proposed from the California Department of Justice. One of which concerns the storage of firearms temporarily by prohibited persons at FFLs. There is a open 45-day comment period that closes on February 25th. I will post the link here in chat. You guys, this is the implementation of the applicable penal codes and statutes that were adopted regarding this. And so if you have any questions or concerns about it, I'd encourage you to take a look at the proposal itself, and you have an opportunity to comment on it. If you have concerns with the way they're implementing it, or if you think there might be a better way to do it, it's always good to submit a comment on that, and the instructions for how to do that are on the webpage. Because it is a 45-day public comment window, that's the standard rulemaking process that DOJ is using. DOJ will be obligated to respond to all of the public comments it receives. And so you'll be able to see what other people have asked or what other people have said on the proposed regulations once DOJ actually moves forward with its final rulemaking proposal. The same for CCWs. Obviously, we had Senate Bill 2 enacted, and then as part of that, the California Department of Justice enacted emergency regulations. What DOJ is doing now is they're formalizing their previously adopted emergency regulations. And this includes a number of things, but a lot of it concerns the back end in the sense that having to do with appeals and how law enforcement and the courts are to handle the appeals. But some of it does concern the actual application process that individuals will be undergoing, including, for example, that among the entities that will now be authorized to provide training for CCW holders, the California Rifle and Pistol Association curriculum is now accepted for that purpose. So if you are an instructor and you're looking to become an instructor, the California Rifle and Pistol Association does have a program in which you can do that and actually be able to teach now, once these regulations get finalized, the required courses for CCW holders. On the national front, I know we've already talked about it a little bit, but obviously Trump issued that executive order having to do with the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, looking at various things the Biden administration has done, as well as existing laws as applied to how they impact the Second Amendment. It'll remain to be seen, of course, how that actually affects us in California, if at all. One of the things that I am kind of interested to see, or at least waiting for, is the nomination for the FBI director, Kash Patel. He's obviously going to be the person, if he is confirmed by the Senate, that's going to be overseeing the FBI. And in overseeing the FBI, he'll basically be in charge of NICS. And so in California, we do have a couple issues sometimes that comes up with NICS. Obviously, we're a point of contact state here in California, and so there's this memorandum of understanding between the California Department of Justice and the FBI, where basically the Cal DOJ is the ultimate decision maker, it looks like, but they rely heavily, of course, on the FBI for their interpretation on stuff. And so, nevertheless, there might be some positive impacts on how background checks are actually conducted, particularly with things like delays, undetermined statuses, things like that, in the sense that you'll basically have the feds hopefully taking a more law and order approach as opposed to what we've seen in the past under the prior administration, which appears to be more of a political approach and deny kind of thing. So we'll see how that plays out. But like I said, that'll be an interesting potential impact for California, especially California gun owners and your customers when actually trying to purchase a firearm, if they have any issues that might cause them problems otherwise. But that, like I said, otherwise, Chuck and Rick talked a lot about a lot of the stuff that I wanted to bring up. We had some new guns added to the roster. And then we had some positive updates in various legal cases, including the we sent a comment letter to Alameda. Alameda has walked back some of its CCW policies, and of course, we've got the new non-resident application process, which may or may not directly impact FFLGuard customers, but nonetheless, it's important your customers are staying up to date on this stuff. So, but that said, that's pretty much all I have, unless anybody else has any questions.
I think that pretty much covers it for the day. Thank you, Rick, for joining us today and your insights and highlights and information. We appreciate it very much. Avis, are there any last minute things we need to leave everyone with?
No, I think we're pretty good. Just make sure you listen to the federal call if you didn't have time for it, and hit the highlights on that.
And again, we're going to do our FFLGuard webinars on March 10th next month, but we're also doing the webinar on the 28th of this month, correct, Alexis? The 28th is that one.
Yes, that's.
Okay. So all that information will be sent out to you folks electronically. We thank you all for joining us today, and we will see you all again next month.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.